Women are demanding money just to date them. Women are demanding money just to date them, guys. This is an insane reality right now. Today's video comes from DBE Capital. Their channel will be linked in the description. And women are demanding money just to go on dates with them. And that's FBE Capital. Guys, watch the next video to fully understand why women are making these demands, how men are responding, and the implications that is going to have on women, dating, society going forward into the future. Now let's just go ahead and jump right into the video.
How much money should your man make a year?
8 figures.
8 figures.
Ideally.
Ideally, my husband needs to be making like $650,000.
Over $500,000. Over $500,000.
$500,000?
2 million.
I'd say like $1 million.
I'm thinking about $1 million.
They probably 6 figures minimum.
Okay, cute.
Yeah, definitely 6 figures. 6 figures.
I think 6 figures is definitely decent.
So if you're out there and you make 15 million or better,
Is that bad?
Wow, so obviously all of these people are completely detached from reality and have no idea on how the world actually works, or even just how basic math works for that matter, since not only are they requiring high 6-figure salaries as minimums to live off of, they are also demanding 7-figure salaries from men in order to consider dating them, as if $500,000 is just slumming it. And thus, this creates the question, what does it even mean when women say, I don't date broke men?
we shouldn't be dating that broke guy with all the sweet words.
Because I think it's selfish to be broke.
40K?
40K is a deal breaker.
That's a deal. That's like, oh, absolutely not. No way. Under no circumstance.
No.
If you're broke when I meet you, you don't stand a chance. Because
What's a broke to you? What is defined broke?
you make less than double what I make.
So this is exactly the clown show we're dealing with. Now, I touched on this in a previous video where I said that broke these days doesn't even mean being in debt with no income, and this girl just literally said being broke is making less than double what she makes. So if we zoom out of crazy land for a sec and take a look at some basic numbers from the United States Census, then we see that the median income for men in 2021 was around $61,000, and for women it was around $51,000. So by her definition, that means that every single guy making less than $102,000 a year is considered broke, which is well over the majority of men.
Just to be clear, guys, even men making $100,000 a year right now, women are basically shaming these men and saying that these men are way too broke for them. And of course, it depends on where these men live, but what states they live in. But the average woman right now sees $100,000 as too little. For example, if you live in Miami and you make $100,000 a year, a lot of women are going to look down upon you and say that's nothing. You can't do anything with that. When you consider the cost of rent and rent, food, and everything else, what's left over for her? Like, I remember many years ago, the MGTOWs, they basically referred to marriage as a form of long-term escorting, where basically you are paying for the services of essentially an escort without getting the benefits of an escort over a long period of time. And that's essentially what marriage really appears to be today. It is a very, very horrible engagement. And because the reason why so many men get involved in it is because they cannot handle being alone. They cannot handle being alone. They cannot handle, dealing with lust and desire. And I understand. It's not that men don't understand. It's not that I don't understand what a lot of men are going through, especially what younger men are going through. Having desires, wanting to be intimate, wanting to be in a relationship, wanting someone who loves you. But the thing is that you have to understand in this world, she will never love you. I made this video many years ago, and I explained why women will never love men. They can love the things that you do for them. They can love things that you provide for them. They can love you. They can even love certain things about you, but they will never love you as a person. The men that they actually love are the men who do absolutely nothing from them and take everything from them. All right, they love the Chaz, the Tyrones, the Ray Rays, the Pookies, the Enriques, the Miguels, the Quans, the Little Panchos. They love Little Pancho. They love Little Pancho and his brother Sancho. These are the men that they love. These are the men who make their hearts pitter patter. And that's never going to change. The very notion that if you have all of these qualities, if you're at least 6 feet tall, you make above 6 figures, and you have a six-pack, she's going to love you. That's absolute nonsense. That's basically trying to buy a person's love. A person does not develop love based on physical attributes. Typically a person that's lust, a person develops love, genuine love, based on a genuine respect of the individual, and that's really just it. For example, your dog loves you one way or another. If you're nasty to your dog and you're abusive to your dog, now your dog will hate you. But just in general, your dog loves you because you provide for it. Your dog loves you because you care about it. Your dog loves you because it's your companion. When a dog is by itself, it feels lonely. Your dog wants to be with you because he misses you or she misses you. It genuinely misses you. Your dog genuinely loves you. Okay? You can tell that your dog loves you, just like you can tell that your wife doesn't. It's a very easy thing to comprehend once you really understand the way that women think and women operate. So many guys have been fooled into believing that women are virtuous and they are perfect. You guys remember the whole believe all women thing? Basically saying that women could not lie about certain things. And now we live in a society where pretty much everything a woman says has to be believed, or else you're a misogynist, when half of all women cannot, probably more than half of all women cannot even define what a misogynist actually is. If you say something a woman doesn't like, misogyny. If you do something a woman doesn't like, misogyny. If a woman disagrees with your perspective, misogyny. Pretty much anything that goes against a woman's liking, or opinion is misogyny, even though they cannot define misogyny. The misogyny is defined as hatred and contempt for women and girls. That is the definition of misogyny. Okay? So to say that a man disagreeing with your point is misogyny is a joke. Saying that you don't agree with, law centered around being pro-life or pro-choice, that's a form of misogyny. No, that's absolutely not. Saying something that could be considered sexist is not a form of misogyny, but yet they will call it that. Misogyny is actual hatred for another human being, hatred and contempt for those human beings. And women, on the other hand, do you guys remember the hashtag K all men? The hashtag delete all men, I'm being polite with the word, or hashtag give your money to women. Because when women discovered that they could use social media to begin destroying the lives of men, they ran with it. Then hashtag M2, where they could they could anonymously post these things, build up support, and then file lawsuits afterwards, having these men arrested and their money confiscated from them. And it's never ending. It never ended, guys. Women scorch the earth with M2. A lot of men learn their lessons and now they stay away. So what are they doing now? Now they're arresting men in the UK, men and boys, taking them in if they're even suspected of being susceptible to extreme misogyny or the manosphere or the influence of Andrew, Mr. Tate. This is what's happening over there, and I'm hearing stories from people who work in schools, and they're saying that the boys are being hauled off. If they even talk about Andrew Tate, they're basically being reported to law enforcement. Like, this is how serious it is. It is a war. It's a war for our minds. It's a war for our thoughts. It is. I'm telling, like, right now, it is increasingly becoming a form of child abuse to send your children to school. Like, just don't do it. Figure out how to homeschool your kids or don't have them at all. But do not send your kids to an indoctrination camp. So many parents just don't give a shit. If I have kids and I'm looking at it today, I don't want my kids anywhere near these institutions where they're going to end up turning out like Gen Z and Gen Alpha. There's some idiots amongst us who believe that Gen Alpha is going to save the world and going to be better than Gen Z. Like, how delusional do you have to be? Gen Alpha is having serious behavioral issues. They're fighting. They're getting fights with adults. They're breaking down. They're ending up being they're being incarcerated at rates even higher than Gen Z. I called it years ago. I said that Gen Alpha is going to be a large prison population. What's happening right now? Gen Alpha is becoming a large prison population, and most of them are not even out of middle school yet. I mean, what do you guys think about that? It's insanity. Oh, y'all remember when some of you fools said that things would turn around and that, yes, the older Gen Alphas are horrible, but the younger Gen Alphas are going to save the generation? Are you crazy? Oh, the 27-year-olds, the 27-year-old Gen Alphas, those are the bad muffins. But the 15-year-olds, they're gonna turn it around, man. They're becoming more and more conservative, man. It's gonna improve. It's gonna improve. That they said this about Gen Z. The older Gen Z, the younger Gen Zers are going to turn the generation around. Now think about this carefully. It typically gets worse as they get younger. So if the oldest Gen Zers are just terrible to be around right now, and these people are dropping out of the workforce, being completely like companies will not hire them. They just glance at their birth year, and that's the end of it. I've had Gen Zers literally cry in my comments about it. Like they can't find a job right now because as soon as the employer sees their birth year, they're not going to hire them. 40% of employers going back to 2022 said that, and this was they polled 1,000 employers, and 40% said that they do not hire Gen Zers. They don't hire them. They steer clear of them. And we're in 2024 now, heading into 2025. It was already 40% back. It was already 40% back then. What do you think it looks like right now? We're probably at nearing 70 to 90% of employers who will not hire Gen Z. And Gen Z has already said that the 9 to 5 isn't for them. So they're basically out there pestering people for tips right now while still living off mommy and daddy. Like they're not going to go anywhere. A lot of Gen Xers know that their crappy kids are not going to go anywhere. All right. They're going to be in their basement smoking weed and eating Tide Pods well into their 30s and 40s.
Most women think that making $100,000 is easy and that everybody's making this in their 20s.
I'm 20, so maybe a good 75K right now.
75K?
Yeah, right now. And then 25, it should be like 150. And then 25, it should be like 150.
How much do you think your guy should make?
You should be making the same amount as me.
Same amount as you?
Yeah, I've made 95K in the last month.
The last month, 95K? You think the guy...
Yeah.
Okay, what do you do?
I underwear.
See guys, just sell your undies online and you'll be making 95K a month ASAP. I don't know why you broke guys aren't doing this. Anyways, back to reality.
That's the simp economy right there. Selling used underwear for $95,000 a month. You have to understand just how absolutely sick the simp is, where the simps will spend this kind of money for that. These men are messed up in the head. These guys are perverts, all right, to go and purchase something like that. You have to understand, these are not good men. These are men to avoid. The average man should not be, guys, that's gross. That is so gross. Why would you go and buy that? Like, ew. Absolutely ew. But that tells you just how messed up the minds of these men are. Okay? They're the reason why we're suffering. It's because of the simp. The simp is responsible for so much of the pain and suffering in society and that men are passing through.
The US Census actually cuts off at $200,000 because, common sense, and because only around 11% of all US households make more than $200,000. So that's both men and women combined, which just shows you how extremely delusional it is to expect a guy to make a minimum of $500,000 or even $1 million just to support you and your crazy spending habit.
You know what's wonderful about this though, guys? I talked about the Great V collapse. I had originally thought it was going to happen in 2020, but the world, everything kind of shut down around there, so it was all delayed. But it's coming, guys, the Great V collapse. And what the Great V collapse is, where women are going to be humbled and surprised that their actions over the last couple of decades are now going to come with consequences. History, it was Mark Twain who said that history does not repeat itself, rather history rhymes. And in a sense, it does repeat, but it does it in a different way. What that means is if you look back at like at history, we had an event in 2020, regardless of what you believe regarding it, and we had a similar event 100 years earlier. Okay, and the Great Depression occurred in 1929. We had this thing called the Roaring Twenties, where people thought that things were much better than they really were, and then the stock markets crashed. If you look at what's going on right now, you have a lot of idiots who are like, "Oh, everything's okay. We stop crying about it. Stop complaining. Everything's just fine." And it really is not. The average person is living off loads of credit right now. The media is pumping out, things telling us that things are going much better than they really are. Almost $1 million jobs just suddenly vanished this past year as we discovered that the United States government was overestimating the number of jobs that had been created by over 800,000. And most of the jobs that they even count, that they're counting right now that are being created, are not full-time jobs, they are part-time jobs. If you stop looking for work, if you give up because you cannot find work, they count that as full employment. So basically, if you become, guys, if a homeless people, I'm not making this up. A homeless person is considered fully employed under the current guidelines of the U.S. of how they measure data. An unemployed homeless person is considered fully employed because if he really wanted to work, he would still be looking for work. So if he gives up, then that means that he must be good. He must be good, and he must be able to take. He's surviving and thriving. So we're doing a damn good job. And then there are people who believe that we're gonna have a universal high income, and everyone's going to live in peace and tranquility, and you won't have to work anymore. Work will be something optional. These people are crazy. These people are absolutely crazy. Is it possible that we could ever have such a reality? That's far, far into the future. And when you consider the kinds of people that are, taking advantage of us in society, they would have far more fun ruling over us and making our lives miserable than creating a world where everyone could live in peace. They don't want you living in peace. They want you living in a dystopic reality where basically you're enslaved. That's the honest to goodness truth. They don't want freedom. Just, guys, this whole notion of Thanos saving the universe by snapping his fingers because we are running out of resources. What people don't understand is that even with an abundance of resources, that doesn't mean that we still wouldn't end up having artificial scarcity. Okay? Because it doesn't matter how many resources you have. It only matters who controls those resources. You could have a world where there's an abundance of resources like ours. We have an abundance of resources, but we still have artificial scarcity based on those who control the resources, and then tell us that the reason why we don't have enough for everyone is because of population growth. Oh, there's just too many people to support with the scant resources. No, the reality is that you're using that argument so that you can jack the prices up. Okay? They would rather throw it in the trash than give it to people who need it or make things affordable. Because that's just how greed works. We're looking at an economy based entirely around greedflation right now, where economy is jacked up because of greedflation.
Ultimately, that's what it all boils down to.
To take you on vacation,
offer you a credit card, or give you a wage,
buy you a nice gift.
A Pagani BC.
How much is that car?
I don't even know. Probably at least like 1.5 mil for sure.
Oh my
at
God.
least.
Take you to nice hotels.
Something more realistic that I would get. Maybe like some sort of like F12 Ferrari.
Wait, hold up. Her realistic backup car is the Berlinetta F12 Ferrari, which starts at around $250,000. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? By the way, drop a like on the video if you think that this generation is completely delusional, and comment down below what you think. Now, I'm not against buying expensive things that you've worked hard for and want to enjoy, just make sure you can easily afford them and not put yourself in a financial mess. However, that's not what's going on here, is it? Because in this modern dating madness, many women just want to be given a $250,000 car or a crazy expensive engagement ring, because when it comes to spending, then all of a sudden they want to be traditional again.
How much should a wedding ring cost?
$62,000.
We had agreed no more than 3 months of income on his end.
I think a wedding ring should cost as much as is in your couple's budget, but mine personally is going to cost around $600K.
I want either Tiffany Co, Cartier.
Her wedding ring. $600K. Guys, I've warned you already that the average man today has a better shot at dating a supermodel. I'm not making this up. Dating a supermodel, a celebrity, one of these women, than you do the average woman. Many of you guys are going to say, Angry, you're full of crap. I'm not. You have a much better chance of dating someone like Ariana Grande, who is a hardcore feminist, than you do of dating the girl who works at McDonald's. The reason why is because these women in modern society, they don't work for anything. At least Ariana Grande had to wake up, she had to grind, even if she's bratty. She actually had to work for something. Most of these other guys, you could have trust me, Taylor Swift will treat you with more respect, even though there are issues with Taylor. Trust me, Taylor Swift will treat you with more respect than the average woman will in Western society. Okay? You have a better shot at and you have a better shot at having a good relationship with Taylor Swift, all right? Or even being able to nowadays approach her because she's so famous. No, but back in the day, absolutely. Before she became a billionaire. All right? I'm giving you these examples. Women who are on television, women who have millions of dollars for themselves. You still have a better chance of rolling up on them and having a relationship with them than you do with the average woman, because the average woman doesn't really create any value for themselves. They don't actually have to do any real work. When they're able to make $100,000 a month selling dirty knickers, that should actually tell you something about society. All right, that works out to what, $1.2 million a year, in that range. So they're making over $1 million a year. That's more than a lot of actresses, famous like actresses in Hollywood. That is more than Zendaya was making, probably 10 years ago. A year. Okay? 10 years ago, Zendaya, yes, that girl who was in Spider-Man was barely making $1 million a year. Like Tom Holland, like the first Spider-Man movie, I think he got paid like $500,000 to do it. $500K. Okay? So for Zendaya, if Tom was getting $500K, how much do you think Zendaya got? Like $200,000, $300,000 to be in Spider-Man? And she was already famous and an established actress at that point. What about someone like Keke Palmer? All right. I'm just throwing off names because I want you guys to think about it. That modern women, they don't have to work for anything. They live off the simp economy. So these women think that they are better than Kim Kardashian. But they don't even have to put in the same work that Kim puts in. I'm not celebrating Kim. Trust me, I am not celebrating Kim. I'll make it very, very clear. But the average woman believes that she was born to be worshipped. She was born for men to worship her, to kneel before her, to consider her a god, call her a goddess, to serve her, to sacrifice for her. Men have to understand that she's not a traditional woman. So, for example, she does not cook, she does not clean, and her money, she has her own money. However, when it comes to relationships, she's not bringing any of her money into the relationship. So if she makes $1 million a year, she wants a guy that makes at least 2 or 3 million, and any money that she has, that is going to remain her money. She will not be contributing any of her money to the relationship. So it's going to be entirely on the man, and they will build together off his money, but she is not bringing her money into the relationship. I had a video where this woman was in her 50s saying that men who date younger women are creepy, and that she's a high value woman, and it's because of society why men don't want to date older women. And then while they're doing this, that's why they say give women enough time, and they will tell themselves, the same women blasting men for dating younger women, saying it's creepy and it should not be allowed, are the same women in the next breath that discuss how many younger men are trying to be intimate with them, are sliding into their DMs. So they're out there and they're boasting about it, all the younger men that they are being physically intimate with, but then they're also saying that older men should not be allowed to date younger women, even though when they were younger women, they were all dating older men. And they will come up with every excuse to explain why this is okay. Women are hypocrites, okay? They do not, the way that they view men and women are completely different. If men use the same tactics as women, if men treat women the same way that women treat men, they basically say that you're just trying to get your licks in and you're a man, you want to be a woman, that means that you're a sissy. They start questioning your sexuality. Same women that say that, men need to be respectful, that they love their gay friends, will then turn around and say that you're gay and then act like it's a bad thing. If we live in a society where everyone is accepted today and you cannot go around shaming someone for their sexuality, but it's okay for women to begin shaming men and questioning a man's sexuality when he doesn't give them what they want. And then how is it that we don't call that hate? As men, we don't have any recourse other than walking away. There's some guys who basically had their lives destroyed in the 90s and they started walking away from the 90s. You see, most women, especially our mothers, they want to break us mentally. They want to break us psychologically so that we can never leave them, we can never function without them. There's a lot of men that do not understand that concept. It's something that women have been doing for generations. Oh my God. I tell you, it stresses me out. It stresses me out what I am witnessing around us. The simps just won't stop. It's like can't stop, won't stop. Once a simp, always a simp. It's becoming more and more obvious that women are completely disconnected with the value of money. They do not understand how valuable money is because they get everything for free. The average woman just walks outside and she's rewarded for existing. But she does not understand that, this someone had to actually work for this. And, the Sims, they basically make it seem like men have infinite amounts of money and that these women are high value because they're engaged in this type of behavior. To be very clear, the one thing that people need to wake up and realize is that women are adults. They are not children. Regardless of how a person behaves, they are adults. They are adult females, okay? They are adult human beings, all right? Hence, because society has very low expectations, it is believed that, oh, well, they cannot be held accountable or they have to be treated differently. This is absolute nonsense. There's a lot of men who watch my videos who seem to believe that it's impossible for a woman to behave like an adult. That's a lie. Women are adults. They can behave like adults if they are treated like adults and held accountable like adults. It's because of society why this occurs. You guys understand what happened when the first wave of feminists basically were out there in the streets and basically protesting? They were thrown in prison. Okay, they were held accountable for disrupting public service. They were considered extremists. It was the simps that ultimately decided that they couldn't stand watching these individuals suffer anymore in prison, and basically we just had to give them what they wanted. That's also how we ended up with prohibition. When we're the direct cause of prohibition, they demanded that drinking be outlawed, and then after it was outlawed, they can no longer live without getting drunk. So then they demanded that it be repealed, and then men caved. They caved every time. But basically, men just want women to stop nagging them. If you look at the Roman Empire, women got no-fault divorce. Then they began gathering up positions of power. They held many large positions of power in the Roman Empire. They began running around, divorcing their husbands, running off with Chad and Tyrone. Men were basically punished in society. They basically began walking away. The empire began running out of money as men began abandoning relationships, stopped dating, stopped marrying. Single men were called worse than all of the criminals in the Roman Empire. They were barred from from going out to the Colosseum. They were barred from going to the arts. So for example, you couldn't go to the museum. You couldn't go to the museum. You could not go to the Colosseum. You could not go to the theater. So basically no movies, no wrestling, no video games, nothing whatsoever. All right. You couldn't even go to the zoo. And you were punished during the winter time. Single men were forced. So you have to understand, there was a lot of men were forced to run in the streets to punish them for remaining unmarried, and they still would not get married. And within 100 years, the Roman Empire no longer had a military, and all of the assets of the Roman Empire were being used to subsidize the living of women. Barbarians came along, realized that the Roman Empire had no clothes. They had no money. They had no soldiers. They had absolutely nothing. They were completely relying on slave labor to run the empire. So yeah, they had captured people, they had put people into slavery, and they were using the Roman Empire was relying entirely on slaves because men had completely walked away from society, and they were using those slaves to subsidize the living of women in the empire. And the empire was basically pillaged when the barbarians realized the emperor had no clothes, and that was ended. For we fell into 1,000 years of darkness, and we were then ruled over the church. We were then ruled over by the church for 1,000 years, who also, by the way, still had math, science, and reading, writing, and arithmetic. They had it, and they kept it amongst themselves, and taught those amongst them that they wanted to, so that they can do things like build their structures, buildings, paint, all of that stuff. Chemistry still existed. None of these things actually disappeared entirely. They were just basically kept locked away by the church. Yeah, that's the history of humanity. And then when we fell into horrible times, how do you think women were doing during the Dark Ages? How do you really think women did during the Dark Ages? I mean, for example, let's just talk about this. So the status of women underwent significant changes from the Roman Empire to the Dark Ages. So women in the Roman Empire, during the Roman Empire, women enjoyed a relatively high degree of freedom and rights compared to many other ancient societies. They could own property, run businesses, and were often involved in social and cultural activities. Wealthy women in particular had significant influence and could participate in public life to some extent. However, their rights were still limited compared to men, and their primary roles were often centered around household and family. Women in the Dark Ages. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the societal structure shifted dramatically, leading to the period known as the Dark Ages, approximately 5th to 10th century, 5 to 10 centuries. This era saw a decline in the rights and status of women influenced by several factors. One, feudal system. Society became more rigidly structured under the feudal system, which divided people into classes: nobility, clergy, and serfs. Women's roles were largely defined by their social class. Noble women had some influence through marriage and land ownership, but their primary role was to manage the household and bear children. Peasant women worked alongside men in the fields, but had little autonomy. Holy cow. Church influence. The Christian church played a significant role in shaping societal norms and laws. The church's teachings often emphasized women's roles as obedient wives and mothers, reinforced patriarchal structures. Women could gain some autonomy by joining religious orders as nuns, where they could engage in education and charitable work. Legal rights. Women's legal rights. Yeah, this is all crazy stuff, y'all. Women's legal rights. Women's rights were severely restricted. They had limited control over property and marriage decisions. In many cases, women were considered the property of their husbands or fathers. This is during the Dark Ages. Economic roles. Despite these restrictions, women contributed significantly to the economy. They were involved in various trades, crafts, and agricultural work. In some regions, women could join guilds and work as artisans. Compared to the Roman Empire. So, compared to the Roman Empire, women's prosperity and rights during the Dark Ages were significantly diminished. The Roman legal system had provided women with more opportunities for economic and social participation. In contrast, the feudal ecclesiastical system of the Dark Ages imposed stricter controls on women's lives, limited their autonomy, and reducing their public roles. Now, there were some notable exceptions. To these general trends. Some women, particularly those of noble birth, could wield considerable influence. For example, queens and abbesses often held significant power and could influence political and religious matters. Additionally, the concept of courtly love and chivalry in the later Middle Ages began to elevate the status of noble women, albeit in highly idolized and romanticized manners. Albeit, I can't pronounce that word. Overall, while women in the Roman Empire had more rights and opportunities compared to those in the Dark Ages, their status was still far from equal to that of men. The transition to the Dark Ages marked a period of increased restriction and reduced autonomy for women, influenced by the feudal system and the church's teachings. So the lives of women became considerably more difficult during the Roman Empire. All right? Considerably more difficult after the fall of the Roman Empire and during the Dark Ages. And it's amazing because modern women seem to think that they're in control. They're basically accomplices of the state, or that they are in charge of the state. In other words, they scream patriarchy, but in their boots, they believe that they have firm matriarchal control over the state. The state operates in the state's own interest. Women are given special privileges and men are given special punishments. Women are rewarded for working as agents of the state to reallocate wealth and resources from men to the state. And that could be through criminal court, through family court, through divorce court, through civil court. It does not matter. But if a woman does not comply with this, then her ability to survive and thrive from the state is greatly diminished. It's not that the state has some preference for women. It's more so that women are more easily manipulated and controlled by the state and used to basically control men. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you want to destroy a country, destroy the men. If you want to destroy the men, use the women to destroy the men. A country without its men is not a country. A country without its men is a wasteland. And no such country will last forever. Basically, you end up in a state where everyone is so demoralized that it creates massive amounts of social unrest. When you have massive amounts of social unrest, no matter how dystopic your society appears to be, it will begin, the framework that holds it together will begin to become unraveled. And if you don't have enforcers, for example, if there are not enough men relative to the number of miserable people in society that are demoralized and furious, then you end up in a situation where you can no longer govern. There are idiots who think that AI and drones are going to rule over humanity. That's a complete joke. Eventually, we may end up in that situation, but we're moving towards a society where everyone is basically going to be surveilled all the time, and we're going to be doing it to ourselves. I've already said this before that every man will be walking around with a body cam very soon. Like in the future, the next big thing, one of the next big things will be wearables. A pin something that you pin onto your chest. Maybe Apple will be the ones to release it and normalize it. And then you'll have companies like Google and so forth that will begin to do this. We're beginning to see these devices manifest little by little right now. These wearable devices that you pin onto your chest, and they're infused with artificial intelligence, and you can use them to ask questions, take pictures. I guarantee you Apple is working on something like this right now. And basically it's going to function very much also as a body cam, where and my guess is that it will be required to have some kind of function where whenever it's recording, there will be a light that comes on so that people know that they're being recorded. All right, for legal purposes, but it doesn't really matter. You're gonna have men walking around with body cams everywhere they go. Every interaction, they're gonna have their body cam on. Okay, and women basically think that by pushing men out of society, they're gonna be able to take these jobs. They don't realize that men have to succeed because if they want to survive, while women have traditionally don't have to succeed because they will always have someone to bail them out, the state or a simp. That's changing now, because the government is broke. The government does not have enough money to continue subsidizing women. The government can't even pay its own bills. It cannot pay the debt on it cannot pay the interest on its debt. $35 trillion in debt, and it only keeps on going higher. Every time the government says that it's lowered the deficit, it doesn't actually mean that it's lowered the amount of money, the national debt. What they mean is that they've reduced the amount of money they were going to spend, or the amount of money they were going to borrow, which would thereby raise the deficit. So, for example, they'll say, "Well, we lowered the deficit. We lowered the deficit." They're not lowering the national debt. They're reducing the amount of money that they would be spending. Adding to the national debt. So it's like, oh, instead of spending $2 trillion, we were able to only spend 1.7. We saved the American people $300 billion. Do you not see how stupid this is? Congress originally wanted to spend $2 trillion, but we lowered it. But we were able to negotiate it down to 1.7 trillion. This is insane. I can't believe that. The math really shouldn't. I don't know how the hell this math is supposed to be mathing. All right, we lowered it down to 1.7 trillion instead of 2 trillion. So we saved the American people $300 billion. All right, that's why you should vote for us. Wait a minute. So you just added $1.7 trillion to the national debt. Yes, and we saved you $300 billion. All right, because we could have spent $2 trillion, but instead we spent $300 billion less. So you're telling me that next year we're going to go from 35 trillion to 36 or 37 trillion. That's correct. But again, we're doing our best to cut those numbers down to reduce the national debt. Well, we were never going to be able to reduce that. In fact, it's just going to keep on rising. But we can reduce the amount of money that we're going to keep on borrowing. This is the boomer economy, guys. This is how they operate. And they'll never stop. They'll just keep kicking the can down the road and living and charging everything to future generations. Like, this is basically stealing our futures. Like, you have to be very, very careful. Guys, it's not a matter if the old people are corrupt. The boomers have always been corrupt. The old people were warning us about the boomers. George Carlin was warning us about the boomers when these people were still in their early 30s. When they were in their early 30s, they were warning us about the boomers. Okay? Think about it reasonably and logically. He was a member of the silent generation. I believe he was born in 1937. And he saw what the boomers were doing. And he talked about what the boomers were doing. And he warned us about what the boomers were doing. He said, you guys have to be careful. He talked about the narcissism that these people were engaged in. It's a sad, sad thing. But you can't be asleep at the wheel. You have to be awake. They took advantage of American society. They basically ran us into the ground. They stole the futures of everyone. Gen Z can barely read and write. Gen Alpha cannot read or write. They're increasingly ending up in prison or jail. Yes, Gen Alpha. I told you I called it right off the bat that they would be a large prison population, and the boomers can't stop, won't stop.
Expensive where you could see like a mile away.
2 times his salary.
Jesus is what I said. Jesus is what I said.
Okay, first, can we get a moment of silence for the guy who's dating the last one? I mean, the intensity with which she said 2 times his salary. It's as if it's the most normal thing in the world. RIP, bro. Because there is no way that this type of spending stops at the ring, and I'm sure that this dude is probably wasting a lot of money in that relationship. Anyways, moving on, because we have to take a closer look at what's driving all of these insane beliefs. And of course, this brings us to social media.
Hi girlfriends, and welcome back to Claire Banks Style, where we talk about luxury, handbags, travel, fashion. I just want to preface this video by saying that I did not purchase all of this. Like, you know, I don't date broke guys. So,
The biggest problems with social media is that it's normalizing things that are absolutely not normal.
So, she did not purchase all of it. Some of it's fake, and some of it's basically, the rest of it's paid for by Sims. I don't date broke guys. In other words, she's been sugar babying it. She's been working as a sugar baby, or she's been using Sims, and that's it. So basically, she's living off the simp economy. That's how most women are surviving today, off the simp economy, and they believe that it's going to be around forever. It's kind of like a lot of women today. They're fighting hard, tooth and nail, to create a society where they will no longer be able to survive, because they don't understand. They're tearing down society with their actions, by demonizing men, by pushing men out of society, by alienating men. They're basically, men are the guardians of society. They're the protectors. They were the protectors of women. Women traded men in for the state. They traded men in for shiny. They traded men in for a couple of dollars, for public assistance, and well, under the guise of security and protection and happiness and blah and all the other nonsense. They demonized men, said all men are dangerous and blah blah blah. And now look at where things are headed for them. All right. Come 2030, most women are going to be childless and single. They're not going to have men. The government cannot subsidize their living. So they're going to be, a lot of these women are going to be homeless. They're going to be destitute. They're going to be living in poverty. They'll be living in shelters. The lucky ones will be living in shelters. All right. Many will be living on the streets, in their cars, or even in the woods. And the crazy thing is that guys, they're never going to change. They're never going to change. They will continue pushing these narratives. They will continue pushing a lot of this toxic behavior that has led to men choosing to deliberately walk away and stay away. And they're going to say, oh, we don't want you. We don't want you. But how dare you leave? We didn't tell you could go. It's sick. It's absolutely sick. You have to wake up and realize that this has been a long time coming, and women basically are the ones who are creating this own disparity for themselves. By the way, guys, don't forget we have the Angry Guy Clubhouse, we have podcasts, we have extended videos, we have guides that can help you to learn how to, build wealth, how to build a thriving business empire. We have Mark Cuban's blueprint for mac and cheese to millions. You can unlock your path to passive income with our complete affiliate marketing guide. We have all kinds of stuff in there, and we're adding more by the day. We also have great articles like The Dark Ages Were Orchestrated, or, our latest article, Women Love Arguments and Men Should Avoid Them at All Costs. Arguments always energize women and demoralize men. Don't do it. All right. So, for example, if you're trying to figure out what's happening in the world, how female nature work, how women think, why women make decisions that they make, then you can definitely find a lot of that great stuff on here. Did feminism fail women? And the unexpected backlash to and blame game. You have women who are blaming one another for feminism right now. We also have some great stuff for Gen X, like the silent rage of Gen X, forging the fires of reality. Men going their own way has robbed them of their future, and even some stuff like that men will appreciate. For example, Thanos' blunder. Why a population cap would have saved the universe. And then, of course, guys, we also have on top of that even more value for you. When you sign up when you subscribe to the Angry Guy Clubhouse, you'll also get our free digital nomad blueprint, which will allow you to work from any country in the world, travel, and make your money, because every man needs to know how to get the hell out of Dodgetown while the going is good, because we can clearly see the writing on the wall that pretty much nothing good is coming. Like really, really hard times are coming, and you have to be prepared for them. You have to be ready for them. You have to be ready to pick up, to leave, and to be able to survive from any place. All right. These men who are saying things like everything's going to be okay, these are the men who are going to be the first to fall. They're not going to survive. They're basically deer in headlights. Don't listen to these fools. All right. You have to be able to stand up and realize that, you know, the writing has been on the wall for a long time. If you're fat, you need to get your butt in shape. All right. Either go to the gym, or if you want to avoid the gym, build your own home gym and work out at home. All right. If you need to do whatever you have to do, I'm just being real. All right. If you need to go on Ozempic or Mounjaro, get your butt on Ozempic or Mounjaro. Some of you will say that stuff is poison. Listen to me. It really depends on the individual, but a lot of you really don't have time to mess around. Hell on earth is coming. All right. And it's people like me that wake people up and tell you to do what you have to do to survive. You know, you have to weigh your risk. I'm just being so honest with you. You have to really weigh your risk. All right. You don't have the luxury of being able to just sit back and say, I'll get it done when I get it done. And some of you are like, okay, well, I don't care. I guess everything is going to go to hell and I'm going to suffer. And then if you don't understand that passing away, like over the last 4 years, for 4 years, I was very, very sick. I was ill. Like I was on my deathbed for 4 years. And I'll tell you right now, death does not come easy. You can suffer the worst pain known to man. And I'm telling you, you won't die. It doesn't just come like that. All right. There's a lot of suffering and it's that you will pass through before you finally get there to that path. And then when you finally do go, I'm telling you, it's not going to be peaceful for many of you. It's going to be horrible. So don't think that you're going to have an easy way out. Many of you will suffer unimaginable suffering before you're finally able to exit this realm of existence. You need to wake the hell up and learn to prepare. The preppers have been warning you guys forever. When things went to hell back in 2020, who wasn't worried? You know who was having a good time? The preppers were having a damn good time. They were laughing at everyone. They were laughing at all of us. All right, toilet paper, food, bullets. They had it all. All right, they were chilling and relaxing. They were eating well, sleeping well, hanging out with friends and family while the world was on fire. That's what the preppers were doing, okay? Because they prepared for this. They were waiting for this. And you know what they're doing right now? They're prepping even more, okay? You know why? Because a prepared mind is a sound mind. When you're prepared for the worst of times, you will thrive during the worst of times. While everyone else is panicking, you should be planning your things out, planning your next steps out, all right? That's what you should be doing. A prepared mind is a sound mind, because when you see what's coming and you prepare for it while everyone is selling, you're out there buying, and it's a fire sale. So you can buy things for, Jesus, for a fraction of what they would usually cost. Right now, PlayStation 5 is PlayStation 5 Pros, they're going to be selling for $700 without a disc drive. Okay. So, I mean, just guys, when everything is on sale, bro. Oh my goodness. You'll be picking that up there will be people selling these things for $100, $200. You do not know desperation. All right. When selling iPhones dirt cheap, everything will be on sale. Everything has to go. And most women have literally almost nothing of value around them. Like I look around what I have compared to the average woman, and I have thousands of dollars worth of things. You know, aside from the clothes that I basically buy new clothes when they wear out. Other than that, pretty much everything I actually own is has actual value that could be resold. You know, in many cases for $1,000 or a couple $1,000. The average woman doesn't have that. There's some of you idiots who are like, oh, the clothing can be resold online. You jackass. A lot of this, you don't even understand how women's clothing works. Most of the clothing that women buy, they operate by this thing called season. So while some of the handbags and purses can be resold, most of the like, for example, the shoes that they buy, those are not resellable. Okay, or they're not going to sell for much. Or the clothing that they own, that's not going to sell for much, because by spring or next fall, it's now out of season. You see what I'm trying to say to you? So it's much different when it comes to women, to what women own. Most women have very little value. You know, while you go into a man's house and you'll find electronics, you know, stamps, collections, Pokemon cards, things like this that hold value, Legos. You know, men will have cryptocurrency, things like this. The average woman doesn't have any of these things. All right. Women, you know, investing, holding things of intrinsic value. Women don't do these things. Planning for the future, saving, you know, building, grinding. These are not things that women do. Women are used to being taken care of. They'll tell you that they're big, strong, powerful. They don't need no man. But then in the same breath, they'll tell you that any money that they bring into a relationship, that's their money. That's their money. That's separate. They're not going to contribute any of it to the relationship. But they also want traditional men. So you need to make way more money than they do. And you need to basically be able to provide for them and take care of them. But at the same time, remember that they don't need you. Like, what kind of narcissism is that? And, you know, you're going to have to provide for them. You're going to have to protect, provide, do everything for them. If she's a single mom, you're going to have to provide for her and her kids. But do not misunderstand that she does not need you. So you're going to have to also be a big boy in a relationship. Don't expect her to cook and clean, because you can do these things for yourself. And you also need to be able to provide for her and her kids. So when she's hungry, you need to be able to provide food for her and her children, because that's your purpose. Your purpose as a man is to sacrifice. And also, don't expect things like physical intimacy, because she's not about that either. So if she's not about that, then what is she about? Oh, she's about Chad and Tyrone, because when you're out working, you know, Chad, Tyrone, Little Pancho, you'd already know Little Pancho is up in your bed, you know, drinking his tequila and eating his tacos and his burritos, because he's enjoying his life. He's living his best life off you. All right. And if he needs some money in his pocket, she's going to make sure to put money in his pocket. And if he needs a bit more, for example, he's struggling with some things, she's going to basically come down on you and screech and holler at you, you know, that some hidden bills need to be paid or whatever, or she needs $20,000 and you need to come up with that money because her friends, they're married to these dudes and these dudes are able to hold them down and you're such a broke boy, blah, 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 blah. And she'll take that money out of your savings account and give it to Little Pancho, because that's the man that she loves. That's the man who's in her heart. There was a guy in Texas, I believe it was in Texas, and his wife stole like $120,000 out of his account and gave it to another man that she was cheating on him with. And he basically, it was all recorded, and she got Control Alt deleted, and she was talking crap to him. It was so horrible. She could care less. She knew what was going to happen. This is to show you how wicked this person was. And what ended up happening is that he went before a judge. He went before a jury. It was an all-female jury. And they basically he's only going to get something like 10 years. He only got something like 10 years in prison, because after they heard what she did, he really shouldn't have gotten any time, but he only ended up getting like 10 years in prison. And to my understanding, he'll be out in like 5 or 6 years, you know? And he got lucky, because honestly, I feel like if there were men on that jury, so men are such simps today that a lot of them would have said that, you know, he should be getting he should basically be Control Alt deleted for what he did. Because men have been conditioned to understand that women can do whatever they want to them and get away with it. You know, it's a sad reality. It's a sad reality. We don't even stand up for one another anymore because we've been conditioned to view each other as the enemy.
18-year-olds and 20-year-olds buying their first house, that's not normal. Going on holidays 4 times a year, again, not normal. Buying a $250,000 car in your early 20s, that's not even close to being normal. Neither are $1,000 handbags, $500 shoes, or eating golden hamburgers. Even people with generational wealth refuse to spend their money this way, but somehow social media has convinced women that if a guy is unable or unwilling to spend in this manner, then he's broke and you should definitely not date him.
Would I date a guy who brings in $40,000 a year? There's nothing wrong with not wanting to be with somebody because of how much money they make.
Obviously, if someone hasn't got any money, they're not going to be taking you for luxury holidays. They'll be taking you to Tenerife at most. They won't be taking you to Bali or the Bahamas.
Now this is all part of a larger effort on social media and news outlets to constantly shame men
He's not gonna get me a tiny ring. He's gonna work 500 jobs.
into spending like idiots on dates, expensive meals, and luxury gifts. Don't buy into this. Because cheap dates are perfectly fine and actually the best way to find out if you even like each other. If you go on this amazing over-the-top date costing hundreds of dollars, is it even the person that you're liking, or is it just the date itself? In Europe, it's perfectly normal to go out on a cheap coffee date or drink date in order to get to know the person and see if you actually have chemistry. But in the US, you see this heavy emphasis on elaborate dates.
So I think coffee dates are the worst kind of date you can go on, and here's why.
Why I don't believe in coffee dates, why they are a waste of time. Do not go on a coffee date.
It's extremely low effort, low value, and ironically, it benefits the man and not the woman.
You see, guys, it benefits the men and not the women because the men are getting access to the woman's time and they don't have to put in as much effort. In other words, when a man has to take a woman on an expensive date, he's basically whining her, dining her, and exciting her. Okay, so he'll take her to a nice steakhouse where she gets to eat well, have fun, and basically he gets nothing in return. She basically is saying that her time is being devalued going on a coffee date. Jesus help us, y'all.
You keep hearing these gold-digging influencers talking about how a guy should invest in you from the start, otherwise he's not worth your time.
Men fall in love through investing in women, especially masculine men, right? So
Invest in what? If I buy an S&P 500 ETF, I know I'm getting an 8 to 12% return for life, plus dividends. What the hell am I getting buying a girl a $300 dinner on a first date? Sounds like a horrible investment to me. But hey, maybe that's just me. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Now the women who want a guy to make at least 100k or more claim that this is only for taking care of the family, not because of frivolous spending.
For me, like, it's not about, oh, buy me this or take me here or do that. Like, I have every intention of building schools in Africa, of building schools in Africa.
Right, so you want a rich guy so you can build schools in Africa? Yeah, that makes sense. Anyways, even if the household income easily exceeds the 6-figure mark, but the guy doesn't make 6 figures himself, then that's still not good enough. This mindset is so mental and completely exposes the big fat lie about how independent women are and that they are now making their own money and they don't need men. Sure, women might make their own money, but a majority of them still don't want to spend it on essential things for the family or on the person they're dating.
I don't want any of my income to be needed in the family. I want the man to be 100% the supporter, but that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna work and I'm not gonna have my own business.
Our money is our money, but her money is her money, right? She's earning for herself.
But it's not 50-50 if his money is our money and your money is yours.
So not only does this expose a very selfish mentality of only wanting to take and never wanting to give, but it actually goes much deeper than that, since as women are starting to make more and more money, they are now shaming men for making less than them, claiming that if a woman is more educated or earns more than a guy, then she's dating down.
Women dating down, which means, you know, a man who...
Dating down.
This is just the reality of it. So women, you know, we're more educated now, and I think that we're furthering our education. So with that being said, and I don't think there's anything wrong with hoping that there's someone either on your level or higher than you.
So, okay.
Go ahead, love doctor.
All right. So before, right, it was okay when the man made more money to be the one to buy everything, to do, you know, treat you and all this other kind of stuff. And now that you make more money, you can't be that one, right? You can't be the one to pay for the meal and because you're dating down.
I hate it.
The people who say this nonsense are the same people who will celebrate a guy stepping down from a job to support the career of his wife, but then make fun of men in general who are stay-at-home dads. The hypocrisy is truly astonishing, and this is why I always say don't fall for the propaganda trap. Now the second reason why this 6-figure obsession makes no sense at all is that at this point it has basically become a brand, a sort of status symbol, mostly used by people who have no idea what the value of money even is.
100, like 500 grand? Is that a lot?
Yeah, people like that. Now the irony of it all is that most millennials and Gen Z couples will actually have 2 incomes, which means that the family household can easily surpass $100,000, and thus they can easily live a very comfortable life together. That is, of course, if they actually get together and become a couple. Because this whole 6-figure obsession, together with other ridiculous dating standards and overall just terrible dating advice, is leading to an ever-increasing group of women chasing a tiny group of high 6-figure or even 7-figure men to then complain that they are getting played and discarded by those same men. This is exactly how you get situations like the Tinder swindler. By the way, this was just one guy playing a handful of women, and they make a whole Oscar-worthy movie about this, blasting it across every single news station, while at the same time, millions of men worldwide are getting tricked into paying child support for kids that aren't even theirs.
Carnell is a wanted man because he refuses to do what the state orders and to pay child support for a child that DNA tests prove isn't his, a child he doesn't even know.
I haven't even had a chance to really speak to him except for one time when we took the DNA test.
Anyways, this all comes down to social media brainwashing people into thinking that 6-figure incomes are the norm and that anything less is living in poverty. Demanding that your partner makes a certain amount of money or has a certain level of wealth only makes sense when you actually come from money. It's understandable that if you have a $10 million net worth, that you might want a partner that has at least $2 million of net worth, so that you can feel as if money isn't the reason that they're dating you. However, demanding a minimum of $100,000 a year of income for a guy when you yourself only make $40,000 makes absolutely zero sense. This was 6-Figure Madness. Please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos.
I mean, guys, this is the reality. Women basically live in this form of delusion that they can have everything that they want, and it's easy. It's very, very easy for the state, for governments for ideologies to overwhelm women. You know, it's very, very easy for it to happen. And women themselves, it's like they don't even realize it's happening, and they even volunteer for it. Women are easily drawn to, and I'm not saying that women are evil, women are not evil, but I will say it's very easy for women to be drawn to evil and tyranny. If you look at this comment from 1984, George Orwell's 1984, it was always the women, and above all the young ones, who were the most bigoted adherents of the policy of the party, the swallowers of slogans, and the amateur spies. This is from George Orwell. He put 1984 out in 1949, 25 years. 25 years before 1984, and 75 years ago. From, I'm making this video in 2024, and he put this out 75 years ago. All right, so guys, this was happening 75 years ago. Even Nikola Tesla wrote about the way that women were thinking and operating in society and the implications it was having for women. I don't know. Here's something intriguing. He actually did predict that there would be a new order and that women would become the dominant and the superior in the future. He did predict this, like almost 100 years ago. He predicted that society would turn women into the superiors of men. Okay, but then he also predicted that women would be, they would be achieving great things, and they would, their minds would be awakened and so forth. Now, of course, we've seen that women can achieve great things, but the biggest problem is that women also revert to their nature. Almost always. In other words, you have women who are, a chemical engineer, and she basically decides that she doesn't want to do that anymore. She wants to go and work on OnlyFools. So she leaves her job as a chemical engineer because it's not making enough money, doesn't bring her enough attention, and she reverts to basically shilling her wares on OnlyFools for $3.99 a month, and that makes her happy. You have a woman who has who basically is a nurse practitioner, or doctor of nursing practitioner, and where is she now? She's on OnlyFools. All right. You have a woman who has a medical degree, okay, and where is she now? She's on OnlyFools, or rather, she's in prison because in her country, OnlyFools is illegal, but she was doing it anyway. So now she's been incarcerated. It's just you have a woman who's an attorney, and she's making $75,000 a year, but she has her bar card. But yet again, that's not enough. All right, $75,000 a year. She has to work $75,000 a year when she can just live off the simp economy and get that money very, very easily. Okay, so now she traded in her decency and for instant gratification, and then she comes from a very conservative household. So now she's destroyed the family's name and destroyed the lives of her father. A lot of these women who turn to only fools and lonely fads, they then turn around and boast about the fact that their fathers lives have been destroyed, and their fathers are conservative and or whatever, and now their fathers' lives are destroyed and they're proud about it. They've destroyed the family's name. Oh gosh, I tell you, and it's a never end, guys. It's a never ending story. It is the never ending story. It's so it's so funny, guys. Women basically act like the lives of men is so easy. They could care less about us, but the moment they even get a shred of what it's like to be a man, they want to run away and hide.
One of my guy friends gave me permission to make a Hinge account for him because I was telling him how easy dating is with dating apps. And he was telling me that it's incredibly difficult. And I was like, Pete, you must be doing something wrong. And he gave me permission to create an account for him and just run the account. I've been a virtual boy for 3 days, and I've never felt this bad about myself. I feel like a freaking loser trying to get these girls to like me. And I'm starting to hate women because I'm like, when I say I mean Pete, because that's the account I'm using. Pete's about a 6. But I'm so desperate, I'm liking the 2s and the 3s, and even they won't like me back, Pete, which is a 6. So what level of delusion has entered women's heads? Like, what is going on? It is so difficult dating as a boy. I hate it. I'm on day 3 of being a boy, and I hate women, and I'm more depressed than ever.
So a woman experiences what it's like to be a man for just 3 days, and she basically can't handle it and falls into a state of depression and began literally expressing the definition of misogyny. Misogyny is the hatred of women and girls, the hatred and contempt for women and girls. And that's exactly what she is expressing there. There was a woman named Nora Vincent who basically tried to be a man. She went undercover, dressed like a man. She was a lesbian. She dressed as a man and pretended to be a man for, I think it was for 2 years. And she made like a documentary about it, and it was very interesting. She suffered a lot psychologically. This was back in the 90s. She was treated so badly as a man. What she experienced as a man was so terrible that it left significant emotional scars upon her. And recently she basically underwent euthanasia because she could no longer live with the experience, what she had experienced as a man. After she ended the experiment, she tried to re-embrace her femininity. She tried to, find herself as a woman again. But the destructive nature, the experience of being a man, it was so off-putting, it was so damaging psychologically to her that 20, 30 years later, she still couldn't live with it. She could not accept what she had gone through with the way women had treated her. It's kind of like basically you just kind of pull the Band-Aid off, and she got to experience what women are actually like, how women actually treat men, all the things that she had believed about men, how easy the lives of men are. Nope, not true. How men are basically viewed and treated like animals. How men are basically this was years ago. This is before it even got as bad as it is now. How the average man is treated so poorly in society. She went through that and she could not accept it. She could never fully re-embrace her womanhood after experiencing this and live with it just was too much. You see, just like men are not designed to have babies, women are not designed to be men. They are not designed to live through the hardships and the realities that men have to live through. Women are not as mentally strong as men are. If women experienced anything like men, they would never leave the house. They would live in extreme states of fear. And not only that, they would basically be shocked when no one comes to help them. No one cares about them. No one shows them even a shred of compassion or kindness. And everywhere they go, they are looked at with contempt contempt and treated poorly just based on their existence. Oh, you owe me this. I'm going to you're supposed to give me this. Yeah, guys. Women can't handle it. They can't. And as I illustrated to you guys, the Dark Ages were not a great time for women. They were really hard time for women. And women basically, we're heading towards a cultural dark age right now, the age of stupidity. That's what I like to brand it. And women themselves are helping to orchestrate this and make it a reality, believing that they're going to continue to receive special privileges while men will just get more, will just, wind up with more special punishments. And I keep on warning you, nothing lasts forever. And eventually, when everything starts to crash and burn, those special privileges go away. And women are like, what are you talking about? Men come and rescue us. And what are they going to find? What are they going to get? Huh? It's going to be pretty unbelievable. But women discover when everything starts going to hell, when their lives become miserable, when they discover suddenly that no one's coming to rescue them, there's no those special privileges are now becoming a thing of the past, and they're basically experiencing just some of what men have been experiencing for a long time. What are they going to do? They're gonna holler, they're gonna scream, they're gonna say men. I mean, there's this comment. I really like this comment from Roderick. He says, this was on Men Have Dropped Out of Society. All right, on my Men Have Dropped Out of Society video. And Roderick says, women will eventually scream, help us, and men will whisper, no. That is the reality that women have created for themselves, and it's really something else. Don't forget, come 2030, 45% of all women will be childless and single between the ages of 25 and 44. Women are passing away. Young women, Gen Z women and millennial women are passing away faster than women born almost 100 years ago, and that's only because that's as far back as the data will go. So we know that hard times are on the way for women. Like hot girl summer is over. Broke girl winter is on the way. It's already here, but most women refuse to admit to it. And while that's happening, men are now in their soft guy era. And we are just getting started with soft guy summer. We are just getting started with soft guy summer as women are going into broke girl winter. What do you guys think regarding all of this? Women are demanding money just to date them. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA Men Walking Away. And cheers.